When The Evil Dead premiered in 1981, few could have predicted the cultural shockwave it would create. Made on a shoestring budget, the film quickly gained a reputation for its inventive guerrilla-style filmmaking, relentless energy, and shockingly graphic moments of violence. It also launched the careers of director Sam Raimi, actor Bruce Campbell, and producer Rob Tappert, establishing the trio as rising talents in the world of independent horror cinema. But alongside its growing cult reputation came intense controversy, particularly in the United Kingdom. During the early 1980s, The Evil Dead served as a primary target of the video nasties panic, a media-driven outcry against unregulated horror cinema. This era was defined by a significant legal loophole. While films in theatres were strictly rated, the booming new home video industry remained an unregulated market where graphic, low-budget imports could be rented without any age restrictions.
It wasn't like there were recognisable companies like Warner's or Universal on the labels. There was these distributors that they were operating out of a caravan in God knows where. Everything was so potentially seedy.
From the point of view of somebody who loves trash movies as well, thank God quality control went out the window because some insane movies came in that would never have got a release otherwise.
Tabloid press and moral campaigners, fearing these films would corrupt society, fueled a societal alarm that triggered widespread police raids on local video stores. This mounting political pressure culminated in the Video Recordings Act of 1984, a definitive law that required the BBFC to officially review and rate every movie released for home viewing. Under these regulations, The Evil Dead was denied a certificate for years. When it was finally approved in 1990, it was only after 1 minute and 55 seconds of footage had been removed. In Germany, however, censorship was handled so differently that the film's identity was entirely transformed. Upon its 1984 German theatrical debut, The Evil Dead was retitled as Tanz Der Teufel, though its time in the spotlight was remarkably brief. Almost immediately, the film was placed on the index of media harmful to young people, and by July of 1984, a court order forced the official seizure of all copies under strict laws against violent media. During this prolonged ban of the film, the original, uncut film survived only through underground bootlegs and imported tapes. This environment of intense censorship meant that German horror fans were long denied the opportunity to experience the film in its authentic form, a history that leads directly to the 2002 DVD release that I will be focusing on in this video. As my own Evil Dead physical media collection continued to grow, and still does, it became obvious that I needed to track down a German release as well. For many years, Germany maintained some of the most strict restrictions of the film anywhere in the world. In fact, it wasn't until 2016 that the confiscation order was finally lifted, allowing the film to be legally distributed again in its original uncut form. That means it took roughly 35 years from the film's original 1981 premiere before German audiences could officially access The Evil Dead without censorship. By the time that finally happened, the franchise had already become a cornerstone of the horror genre, and the television show Ash vs Evil Dead was already well into its second season. Now, before watching this particular version of the film, I had always assumed that the 1997 UK VHS release was heavily censored, and to be fair, it certainly was, but compared to this German edition, the British version feels relatively restrained. This specific release of Tanz Der Teufel runs at approximately 70 minutes, or just over 1 hour and 9 minutes. That's dramatically shorter than the film's original runtime of around 85 minutes, and the way the censorship is handled here is particularly striking. While most censored versions of the film just trim a few seconds of gore here and there, this version goes much further. We aren't just talking about shorter scenes. Entire sequences are missing altogether. They weren't just softened or toned down, they were completely wiped out. 1 second you're watching the film, and the next, a massive chunk of the story is simply gone. Major moments of violence and gore are cut out so extensively that large sections of the narrative disappear entirely. As a result, The story can feel disjointed, with scenes jumping abruptly from one moment to another with very little context. To give you an idea of just how drastic these edits are, take a look at this clip from the DVD. Now, if you thought that was bad, then just take a look at some of the major scenes which were totally removed from this cut of the film.
Ist es tot? Ja.
It's worth noting that these aren't even all the cuts in this version. They're just a small sample to give you an idea of how much is actually missing. As someone who hunts for physical media from this franchise, I've always been fascinated by how The Evil Dead changes across the globe, especially when it comes to weird alternate edits and censorship. But this German release of Tanz Der Teufel really stands alone. Now, we all know the film itself isn't a comedy. Sure, the acting can be a bit campy at times, it's all part of that low budget charm, but the humour here comes strictly from the censorship. The editing is so aggressive that the experience becomes completely surreal. Of course, if you want to see the film exactly as it was intended, with every over-the-top effect and graphic detail intact, the uncut version is the only way to go. That's the version that the horror community knows and loves. However, if you enjoy the atmosphere of horror but aren't a fan of extreme gore, a censored cut might actually be a more comfortable watch. And if you've ever wondered what The Evil Dead looks like with nearly all of its violence stripped away, well, this version certainly delivers. So what about you? I'm curious, have any of you fellow Deadites actually sat through this specific cut of The Evil Dead? If you have, I genuinely want to hear about it. Drop a comment below and let's get a conversation going. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these jarring jumps and missing scenes. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, stay groovy.